Hello everyone, we've got another Matchday Sessions AMA for you. Our latest guest is Marvin Sordell, former Premier League and Olympic footballer, and he spoke to us about his playing career as well as all the important work he's been doing off the pitch since his retirement, including helping to support those who've been through mental health issues and victims of racism. It's a really interesting listen and touches on some really important topics, so check it out. You've lived the dream pretty much of so many people by playing in the Premier League. For all our, users who may have had that dream themselves, how do you even put that experience into words?
I would say I'm very fortunate. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I've had a dream since I was 5-6 years old of being able to play professional football, to be honest, let alone at a high level. But I was very lucky to have been able to do so in the Premier League and for 2 different clubs and also the Olympics as well, which was a very, very incredibly special moment for myself on a personal note, but also the country as well. So yeah, I'm just very grateful.
Yeah, like you mentioned there, the Olympics. It was the first Team GB men's football squad for over 50 years when you played in 2012. How proud of a moment was that for you, and what was that like as an experience?
Incredible. It's probably the last time we'll have a Team GB football team, I reckon, as well, because of all of the politics around it, of course. And as I said, on a personal note, it was very special because I grew up in Harrow in northwest London, and around the corner from Wembley Stadium. So, growing up, going to Wembley very often and seeing the stadium and dreaming of playing there and managing to do so in the Olympics, for me and my family was such an incredible thing, and something that I'm, so proud of, to be a part of history in that sense. To be one of very, very few people who have played for Team GB, playing football as well.
Yeah, and it felt like those Olympics, I remember at the time, it felt like a really exciting, proud time for the country as well. Was that something that you felt in the squad? It must have been like an amazing thing to be representing the country during a time like that.
Yeah, very much so. And, it was such an incredible thing, and obviously slightly different to usual international football. I played England for England under 20s and 21s, and Team GB, of course, we had Welsh players in the squad, but there was such a unity within the squad when we were going out to represent Great Britain, and it was also different in the sense that, that it wasn't just a football tournament, that everything wasn't just around the games of football, it was around all these other sports, and, based in London, but there was so much going on across the country, which obviously we know because we played in Manchester, we played friendly in Middlesbrough, we played in Cardiff as well. So it was pretty special as an occasion, more so even than just a football tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a pretty impressive squad we had as well. It was looking around and seeing there were some strong names in there.
Yeah, I felt out of place a little bit, to be honest.
No.
At the time, I was one of the youngest, if not, I think the youngest outfield player in the squad, and some massive names, as you said, like Ryan Giggs, obviously the biggest name in that sense, and he was playing first team football for Manchester United when I was born. So it was pretty incredible to be in that close quarters with players like himself. Daniel Sturridge, of course, Craig Bellamy, Micah Richards, and some of the other talented players like Aaron Ramsey, Tom Cleverley, and to just be around them and learn as well, and just use that to develop even further.
Was Micah Richards as loud then as he is now?
Yeah, he's a huge personality, so I'm not surprised to see how he's gone on and done so well in media and broadcast and television, because his personality is very infectious. He's very bubbly and loud, and he's a great person to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very entertaining. Now, we've mentioned you've had some incredible highs in football,
but you've also spoken quite candidly about some of the abuse you received and the effect that that's had on your mental health. So for any of our listeners who maybe aren't aware, could you maybe touch on that a bit more for us and tell us about how it affected you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very open in discussing this, and I do so continuously because I think it's important. But I struggled with my mental health. I suffered from depression for quite some time whilst I was playing football, to the point where I attempted to take my own life. And unfortunately, I failed at that, and I'm still here today. And I've done a lot of work in this space of mental health since, because it's something that I'm very passionate about, but also I think it's very important because a lot of people suffer. A lot of people suffer in silence. A lot of people also think they're the only person that's suffering. And, I was all of those things at one point in my life. And I realized as time has gone on and the more conversations I've had with people around it, I very much quickly understand that that wasn't the case. And it didn't have to be the case. I wasn't the only person that had ever felt this the way that I felt. I didn't have to suffer in silence, and I didn't have to suffer alone. So yeah.
Obviously, yeah, that was must have been a very traumatic thing to go through. But now, like you say, I guess one positive as it is now that you can use that to help educate and hopefully encourage other people to come out and speak about if they're suffering from similar issues.
Very much so. I try as much as possible to look at the positives of things as opposed to the negatives. And, I could look at that period with so many negatives, but there are so many positive things that I've managed to gain out of that negative experience. There are, as a starting point, the career I am in today, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a marketer, I have a couple of businesses. I obviously do a lot of work within the mental health space as well. And if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be in this position right now, because I wouldn't have gone down, a certain path, and I wouldn't have chosen certain things to do as outlets initially. And they've gone on to be some of the things that I love the most in my life. And also just understanding myself to a greater perspective, having felt what I felt to the depths I did, it has given me such a greater perspective on life, on my own journey, and a much greater appreciation for things as well. So I try to, as much as possible, look at the experiences and try to draw the positives from them, which they are many. The period itself, of course, can just be looked at as negative, but there are things that I've learned and gained that have been invaluable off the back of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you've got an incredible attitude towards like the lessons that you can take out of this, and the way you've shifted the perspective of that. So you retired when you were 28, I think that's right.
Yes.
And which is obviously a bit young for a footballer. And I think you mentioned at the time that was mental health issues was a big part of that. Was that a difficult decision at the time, or were you just at a point where you thought, look, I'm done, I want to get out of this as soon as I can?
I mean, the answer is both, really, because, for me, it was the first thing that I've ever loved, to the extent that I did and I do. And it was also something that caused me more pain than anything that I've ever experienced. So it was difficult because, it was my dream to be a professional football player. I love playing football. I still love playing football, and I wanted to do so as much as possible. However, I understand that some things are not for everybody, and some situations and circumstances may create environments that are not right. And for me, I understand, looking back in hindsight on my career, I understand that I potentially wasn't suited to a lot of the things that come with being a professional football player. And it's so much more than just playing football, so as difficult as it was, one thing that I wanted to keep hold of was the love of playing football and the love of football as a game and as an industry. And if I continued to be a professional, I don't think I would still have that today. Yeah. And also I was very much struggling with that concept of showing up and not being happy, and I think the biggest decision I made was to just choose being happy over everything else.
I mean, you said then, that it was maybe something down to your personality. Do you think it was solely down to you, like your personality, or was it also that maybe there wasn't the right support in place to help you get through this kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there were numerous factors, but the times were the times. There were several people who played football, a lot of people who played football at the same time as me, a lot of people who came through before as well. So, partly, of course, it's environmental, but it's also the person that you place in that environment, and does it work for them? And for me, I would probably look back and say, probably not so much in a healthy way. It worked in moments and at periods, but probably not overall. And so I understand that wasn't to be, and I don't blame anything or anyone really. It's just sometimes it's just things have to be a certain way. And then of course, off the back of it, I've been able to do so much within the space of mental health within football as well. So, for me, if it only was me that had to suffer, for so many people to not suffer, I think it's pretty fair trade.
Yeah, that's a very selfless way of looking at it. Was it at the time, was it a relief to get out of that environment? From the way you're speaking, it sounds like it must have been quite a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I felt pressure from a very early age, because the majority of the highs in my career happened very early, probably within the first 2 years, really. So for the remainder of that, I had the pressure of everything that was expected of me and what I was going to achieve from very early. And so it did feel like a weight off my shoulders when I managed to get to that point of making that decision, and then of course actually went through with making that decision. And even more so because it was an exciting time to move forward into other areas of passion within my life that I could take further and have a fresh start and a clean slate in a way as well.
Yeah. Did you ever consider making a comeback, or have people, saying, come on, we'd love you to come back and get involved and play for us, or anything like that?
Yeah, I considered it briefly in terms of potentially playing non-league, but I decided against it. I trained at a couple of clubs, and to be honest, I decided that I wasn't really I didn't really fancy it, to be honest. Yeah. But I've had a lot of offers, a lot of people asking me, but to be honest, I'm very happy with the way my life is currently. And, I still play a lot of football. I play with friends on a regular basis. At least once a week, if not twice, 3 times a week. And still get to go to the gym. So I'm having my outlet of playing football and exercise anyway. But then I have such a freedom in the rest of my life, and such a control over it, without the realms and environments and the barriers that come with going back into the environment playing football.
Well, that's very good to hear. Very glad that you're able to enjoy it again.
Thanks.
You've also pushed to raise awareness of people suffering from racist abuse, which is something you unfortunately experienced in your career. Do you feel like the support for players who are being affected by those issues has improved since you were playing? What do you think of it in its current state?
I mean, that's a good question. To be honest, it's difficult to say, because, without being in the environment of as a football player, you don't necessarily understand a lot of the things that go on, both consciously, subconsciously, very overt, and so it's difficult to say how things have moved on. And obviously with that comes how things have moved on in terms of support. Support is a very that touches on mental health as well. And I know within the world of mental health, things have gotten better. A lot more is being said and a lot more is being acknowledged, but there are obviously instances where that isn't the case. It's definitely not the case across the board. So can I say it's gotten better? Probably. How much so? I don't really know. I don't have the answer, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, like you said, it's difficult, to speak, from the outside of that environment, but it does feel in last few years with things like social media and stuff like that, that instances of racism seem to be sort of on the rise quite significantly. And there is, like you say, more conversation about it. but it almost feels like it's getting harder and harder to police it and control it. And there's a lot of conversation about it, but maybe there's still that sort of extra effort needed to actually, put a firmer stance on it and help protect people a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that's racism and abuse in general, to be honest. It's not just because I think it's as a football player now, it's probably quite difficult to kind of switch off from things because there is so much pressure, scrutiny, limelight on football players. So it must be pretty difficult to see and hear these things consistently, where that wasn't the case before. But I think it's just another element of the game and the industry and what it is now, and it's just another thing that needs to be managed, as anything else does, to be honest.
Are there any measures from your playing days or from now that you think, I really wish someone would introduce something specific for this, or anything where you thought, look, we could be doing this better, or anything like that?
There's a lot more we can be doing better, to be honest. I think, particularly when it comes to racism, harsher sanctions, less tolerance towards it. I would say more policing. I guess it'd be good to see it taken a lot more seriously. People might say it is taken seriously, but I think if we look at what the numbers and statistics are when it comes to fines and bans, things like that, it's very clear to see where priorities lie in often. And with things like match fixing, for example, that is taken very, very seriously, as it should be. But in comparison, things like racism and abuse are not. So it's difficult to say that it's a priority to get it out of the game. It's a priority to get out of society when things are being treated harsher, which in my opinion should, at the very least, they should be treated equivalent.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not just the sanctions against the, coming from abuse from the stands or off the pitch. It's on the pitch as well, I think, where more needs to be done. Because, if a player says something to another player, it sometimes feels like that is not, treated to the same extent as some other things.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just, how much do we want this out of the game, and how much, how heavy is it going to be sanctioned in a sense? Because, we can do all the campaigns in the world and we can have these conversations and we can raise awareness, but at the end of the day, with something like this, when it gets down to the fact that something is proven, it's quite black and white in the sense that you can make a real strong stand and say, we're going to put a stop to this, or you can kind of carry on and just, slap on the wrist and move things forward. Yeah,
definitely. Coming back to the mental health advocacy, feels like in sort of general society, there's a lot of encouragement for people to talk about, their mental health and ask for help when they need it. But it does still feel almost like it's a bit of a taboo subject in the footballing world. Is that something you'd agree with? And if so, what do you think it is that causes that barrier?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of difficulty there because I think the barrier probably comes because of the fact that some players earn a lot of money, and so it's difficult with people who are struggling financially or, don't have the access to a lot of things that some professional footballers do, to then listen to someone talk about the fact that they are struggling, and so that's obviously one thing. And, obviously anyone that understands mental health knows that it isn't, I mean, money can be a factor in it, of course, but it's purely down to any situation that can be happening in life. There are obviously personal issues that can cause someone to spiral, just the same as something financial can cause someone to as well. So it's tough because, a lot of the time I have conversations with people and they say, it's great that what I do around mental health is amazing and raising awareness and And it's brave of me even sometimes to speak about my own experiences. But I said, it's easier for me. It's a lot easier for me than it is for someone who maybe at the time is at the top of their career and is, doing very well, very successful, because they'll be under a lot more scrutiny than I would. People were and are very empathetic towards me and were very willing to receive what I was saying. However, we're never going to really get anywhere unless we get to a point where someone who is at the very top of their craft is able to have the same conversation and still receive the same support.
Yeah.
Which at the moment, I don't think is the case. I don't think that would be the case if someone who was at the very top of their career spoke about something that I was speaking about. The responses would be drastically different, I fear, which is obviously an issue in itself.
About an hour ago, the Premier League tweeted to announce that between the 6th and the 15th of May, all their games will be dedicated to the Inside Matters mental health campaign. It's going to have a free text number for people to get confidential support. And they've got, Ben Chilwell, as part of it, has said that he's been speaking to someone for a few years to help him with that kind of thing. That feels like quite an important and a significant campaign to help with the kind of issues you were mentioning before.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's good that people are doing stuff, and raising awareness obviously still needs to be happen and it needs to be normalized and the conversation needs to continue. But there's also still needs to be tangible outcomes as well. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not the person with all the answers, so I can't necessarily sit here and say I've got all of those. But I think that comes with a collective of people working together to find solutions and to change a lot of sometimes the language that comes surrounded by mental health, and also the attitude towards it and what it is. Because as I said, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't pick and choose people because of a specific set of circumstances they're in. Every single person reacts differently to every single set of circumstances they're placed upon. So, yeah, I think it's a positive for sure, but there's still so much more that we can and need to do.
I know it's you touched on that a bit there, and it is a difficult thing to answer, but do you think that there are something or specific things in football that can be done to better spot the signs or encourage those who are suffering from mental health issues to ask for help and better support those people? I mean, for example, is there anything in your career where you've just thought, I wish someone would have said this to me, or I wish someone would have done this?
Yeah, there's so much more that can be done. I think everybody knows and understands that for sure. And that comes with education, for spotting signs, and it comes from the right people as well. Having the right people in the environments. One thing I've said a lot within football is that I think football clubs should have people who are qualified and trained to be a part of the training group in terms of the players, and not necessarily a player, but to be part of the group and understanding their behavioral patterns, understanding who they are as personalities, understand what's going on in their private life, because then they'll be able to have a better gauge of what is going on, and if somebody does need to be, supported in whatever way they do need to be supported. I think at the moment we're just kind of waiting until someone gets to the crisis point where they reach out, and people only reach out when they have nothing else to do. They have no other options and no other solutions. So I think we can be more proactive in our approach to, actually supporting people, but supporting people before they get to the point of really actually needing it to that extent.
And this is another one sort of for your experience, but if you could go back now and speak to your 18-year-old or your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self?
To be honest, I wouldn't give too much. I'd kind of just, I wouldn't want to change anything because my journey has made me who I am today. And, I'm pretty happy with the person I am and have become. So to be honest, I would just mostly just say, just strap up and get ready. It's going to be a ride.
Yeah, fair play. No, that's a good way to think of it. And you touched on it a little bit before, but you've been doing, since you retired from football, you've been doing so much. You've been doing a lot of different things. Like you mentioned, you're a speaker, a writer, a campaigner, a filmmaker. Could you tell us a little bit more about the kind of things you've been working on from then and up until now?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of stuff, to be honest. I think I enjoy the fact that I'm not boxed into one thing or, one way of life in essence, really. And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to do a lot of things that I love. Storytelling is at the heart of that, really, in essence. But having been a writer in some capacity, having been a filmmaker, I have a production company, so I'm a producer. We've done stuff that probably a lot of people would have seen, but not necessarily know that it's us. But some of the standout pieces that people recognize and know are the This Is Football series for England. So we did that with Raheem Sterling, John Stones, and Jordan Henderson. We've done some stuff with like Chelsea, McDonald's, Sky, and we did a narrative short and other bits and bobs as well.
Yeah.
But that, and then I've got a marketing agency as well. So marketing and see a lot of work within the space of mental health. With that becomes speaking gigs, so doing public speaking. I also have a podcast with Adam Smith, who's a Sky Sports presenter. I host that for Calm, which I'm an ambassador for, and Original Penguin, which are a clothing brand. So yeah, I just do a lot of stuff. To be honest, if anyone asks me what do you do, I just said stuff, things I enjoy, and there isn't really a way of kind of describing it, but every day's an adventure, which is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were making the promo graphics for this AMA, and I was trying to think what to actually put as what you do, and I was like, there's just so many things, I can't fit it all on here. So fair play for that. It sounds like you say, very busy. But now, if it's okay with you, we're going to do a quick fire round for some of the standout points from your football career. So, what would you say was the highlight of your playing career?
Definitely playing at Wembley.
Okay, and
in the Olympics.
The best goal you ever scored?
I scored a goal for England under-21s against Israel. It was a friendly. It was at the Barnsley Stadium. It was like left foot from like 30-ish yards out. Nice. Went off the post, like top corner, kind of.
Very nice. I'm realising now the limitations of an audio-only discussion about a goal, but it sounds great. Which opposition stadium you played in had the best atmosphere?
Probably Ellen Road, Leeds.
Nice, good shout. Who was the most talented teammate you ever played alongside?
A few, but
you can do a few.
Just some. Okay, a few. Probably there's three. Obviously, I would say Ryan Giggs for obviously his career. Daniel Sturridge for just his ability, and Wilfried Zaha as well.
Nice, strong names. One player, it can be past or present, anytime, that you wish you had played alongside.
Potentially Thierry Henry.
Nice.
He was my hero growing up. So probably,
That's a very good role model to have. Fair play.
Sure.
Actually, my next question was going to be a childhood hero, but I guess would it be Henry for that as well?
Henry and Ian Wright were my two heroes growing up.
Were you an Arsenal fan growing up?
Yeah.
This is my good guess there. Who was the toughest opponent you came up against?
Probably Thiago Silva.
Oh, wow.
We played Brazil in a friendly before the Olympics, and they had a very good team.
Yes, I remember.
So, yeah.
Neymar, I think, was playing in that squad as well, wasn't he? That was mad, that squad. Who is the best player in the world right now?
Right now? Probably, I would say Mbappe right now.
Okay, nice. And I'm just going to add this one on because I've just found out you're an Arsenal fan. Are Arsenal going to win the Premier League this season?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I've said that for a while. I grew up in Arsenal, but I'm not like massively, like emotionally connected to it. Just because of what happens within the world of football and how you feel about it being in the industry for so long. But yeah, I don't think they'll win it. I think City are too strong. I think they'll probably win every game from now.
Yeah, it's sadly inevitable. So now a little bit just on Matchday. So we're working here to create a number of experiences and games for our users. Are you a gamer yourself? Do you play any video games at all?
I was before I had kids.
Oh, right, that makes sense. What before the kids arrived, what were your favourite games to play?
My two were probably FIFA and Football Manager.
Oh, nice! I'm very good. We've got some people who used to work there. So, who would you usually pick to play as on either of those?
FIFA. I mean, it just depended really. I used to always want to have a team that just played football.
Yeah.
So depending on who had like the best passes, and at a time it was just who had the most Spanish players in the squad. So. And then on Football Manager, it just depended on how committed I was to a game. So sometimes I might start with like a random obscure team from a very low down division and like really want to build them up and so that. Sometimes I just wanted to just win everything.
Yeah,
go for a team.
I have had that exact same feeling where I've tried to take like a non-league team all the way up, and then I've got bored and I was like, I'm just going to be Man City. I'm just going to buy everyone.
Yeah.
But, I feel you. And then we produced a series of cards based on footballers, so people can build their own dream team. And we've got different rarities. So you've got common cards, but above that you've got limited, rare, and legendary, kind of like a 3-2-1 going up kind of thing. You've already told us, I think, your three best teammates, but could you put them in order? It's basically your top three. Could you put them in order of reverse order of your top three teammates from your career?
So, I mean, what were the tiers? Legendary, rare.
Yes. So we start. Limited is third place essentially. Then rare is second.
Okay.
And legendary is the absolute number one, the GOAT, if you will.
Yeah, I'd probably say Zaha, Sturridge, Giggs.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Those are some very strong names. I think those are some of the strongest names we've had on this podcast so far. So thank you very much for that. I shouldn't mention before. Actually, you are actually our first Premier League footballer we've ever had on this. So it's a very big day for us. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I mean, just about.
Yeah, I mean, well, it all counts. You've played more Premier League games than me. So, I just want to say a huge thank you for joining us. It was really interesting to listen to what you have to say and really sort of encouraging to see that people like yourself are pushing for more support for those kind of things. So I think it is something that people really do overlook, especially, when I'm working in a social media environment. Sometimes people tend to forget that footballers actually are human beings as well.
Yeah.
So, it was really, really great to speak to you.
Nice, my pleasure.
Thank you very much for that. I hope you enjoyed it too, and I hope everyone listening enjoyed it. We will put the full audio up on YouTube and Spotify so you can listen again. But for now, it's goodbye from Marvin.
Thank you. Cheers.
Marvin.
Goodbye.
Cheers for that, and goodbye everyone. Thank you.